Go ahead and hit it. All right. Hello and welcome to the Benzo Rehab Dungeon episode 106. It is the 26th of August, 2022. I am your host, Michael Deebs. Danko is out for this week. We wish him the best in his spirit journey. Joining me today, as always, is John, the producer, from the Instagram handle at Discopathic, which you should send him pictures of your butthole to.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Do that. Do that.
Do that. Include your face in the butthole picture too. He likes looking at both holes.
Yeah. And if you could do it without like photo editing, like actually contort yourself.
Oh yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Like it's all gotta be in the same single picture that's taken.
Yeah.
One exposure, two holes. Cool. Glad I said that.
I think that's the name of the made for television documentary about monkeypox.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's pretty serious. John, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. I'm pox free.
Pox free since 2022. Yeah, you got the monkeypox vaccine. I'm actually I'm just gonna see if I get it, and then God gave us immune systems, and my immune system will fight it off. And if I'm covered in horrible scars for the rest of my life, that's just the price you pay sometimes for trusting in your own immune system for help you out, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as the smallpox vaccine. However, I could barely use my left arm for 3 days.
That must have made some situations very difficult for you.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
How are you?
Oh, I'm okay. I forgot we hadn't asked me that yet. I'm doing okay. I got a lot of notes here. It's maybe a shorter episode. Even though we have a bunch of links, we're not using the links for very much. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how long it runs. And we'll continue from here, I guess. Before you go to the first link, as always at the top of the show, I like to give well, not as always, as most of the times at the top of the show, I like to give some recommendations. If you haven't watched The Rehearsal, which is on HBO, but you should steal it from somewhere else. It's a show by Nathan Fielder, who did Nathan for You, which is a very funny show if you haven't watched that either. But The Rehearsal is the premise is that he helps people rehearse for moments in their life that they're like nervous about. And he does so by kind of hiring actors and having them run through scenarios over and over again. And then throughout the course of the show, this is somewhat a reality TV sort of thing. Like not everybody is in on the joke all the time. But halfway through the show, he ends up like falling prey to his own. This is a little bit more of the scripted side of things. He starts falling prey to his own like pretend scenario that he's developed, where he and another woman are raising a child. And he keeps on like going into these like deep emotional things about like this fake kid that he has. Also, since there's child labor laws and these children are technically hired actors, he has to rotate the children out every couple of hours so that he's not breaking child labor laws. And so they're like doing it behind the scenes in secret. And so you'll see a kid like walk into a room and then another kid walk out. So pretty hilarious. Kind of exploring a lot of deeper things about like I guess maybe how we all are somewhat actors in our own lives. We're all playing certain roles and that sort of thing. But
Oh
very
yeah.
good show. Hilarious. Lots of times just absolutely cackling at how insane some of the stuff is. Um, the woman that he's raising this pretend child with. Um, the woman is the one that he's supposedly helping because she wants to know like if she'd be prepared to be a mother. So he sets up this elaborate rehearsal for her, and she turns out to be like a crazy Christian fundamentalist, that like basically starts telling him everything he's doing is like some sort of satanic ritual adjacent, like problematic thing. And he's Jewish, and so he ends up like taking the fake kid to the synagogue. And then she finds out about, yeah. There's so much funny stuff that happens. Really good show. Highly recommend it. Another thing I'd recommend is I just watched Nope last night, which is the new Jordan Peele movie. Um,
Oh, there's another one.
yeah, it's pretty good. Overall, it's pretty good. There is a scene, and I won't spoil the scene, but there's a scene with the chimpanzee about halfway through that I think is going to be forever burned into my fucking mind, and it was one of the most like hilarious depictions of something I've ever seen. Like, just absolutely kind of sort of out of nowhere, but like insane levels of violence. But even if you don't like the rest of the film, that scene is worth watching the whole movie for alone, I think. Um, so those are my recommendations, things that I've been watching lately. Um,
So the rehearsal and Nope.
yeah, both of those, the rehearsal and Nope. Um, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and go to our first link, um, which maybe you need to refresh. What? Oh yeah, just go continue as Michael, I guess. Yeah, whatever. Oh, click on it. There we go.
Oh, okay.
That's weird. I linked it to this page, but whatever. So Caleb Maupin, one of the guys that we've been talking about lately. Coincidentally, I believe this is like the day after. Let me check real quick. Yeah, so the day after we have our last episode on Nazbols. Caleb Maupin, like the American Nazbol guy, who I'll reiterate, really has no political like weight or power in this country. It comes out that a bunch of his quote unquote comrades uh basically revealed that he's been trying to run a sex cult sort of thing.
Why is
Um
it always a sex cult?
Yeah, right. So go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Maybe just click number one, summary and information for the. Oh, I guess you got to go down to number one. Um, and then zoom in a little bit so I can see it. So summary and information for the reader. Yeah, just click that. Bringing forward this statement was not easy for any of us, but there was no alternative to speaking the truth. It is our responsibility to stop abuse of power against comrades, those of us who want to fight for the ideas of constructive, optimistic socialism and anti imperialism, and who have contributed to the organization's center of political innovation, have been betrayed by Caleb Maupin. Over the years, he has subjected members of CPI to various forms of abuse and exploitation. He pushed his sexual desires on members who had considered him to be a leading comrade. He brought his sexual impulses into political organizing. Caleb pushed a member out of CPI and its predecessor, Students and Youth for a New America, after she made clear that she would not do sexual favors for him. Caleb paid a member for sex who knew he was was economically desperate, and then went on to push them out of the group and slander them. Caleb Maupin has also targeted people in their teams with manipulative cult tactics in an effort to exploit their labor so that he can build himself up in their off their hard work and sacrifice, and then would go on to slander them behind their backs if they didn't do exactly what he wanted. The abuses Caleb Maupin committed could have also done tremendous damage to all of us by discrediting all who associated with our political position. Um, so a couple of things here. Um, these are victims of someone who was basically coercing people, manipulating them. There's a series of text messages somewhere down the line here. I read through this whole entire miserable thing, and I really wish they made eye bleach for these kind of things. But keep going down. There's going to be a point where and I'll tell you when to stop, I guess. There's going to be a point where he decides to just quote the Bible to this person. Um, which I'm not necessarily against quoting the Bible to people, I suppose. But the way in which he quotes the Bible seems to imply that maybe he's some kind of like godlike figure who should be listened to. Um, just keep going at a steady pace, and I'll tell you when to stop. Oh, okay, there we go. Right there. That big white block.
Aha.
So go up to the top of this screenshot. So this has been censored. The name of this person has been censored because this is the person that was forced into sex work by Caleb Maupin, essentially. And not only just forced into sex work, but sex work for him. This person is referred to as member two. And he says, member two, we should talk later, but basically it all gets down to this. You're in a situation where you know your housing and food will be taken care of. You will not be left out to dry. He's talking about the CPI members, like lodgings that they had, basically, where they would provide food and shelter to members of this organization. So basically, he's saying like, I'm putting a roof over your head and food in your mouth. Like, why are you being so shitty about this? So he goes on to say, however, you have some rather unrealistic expectations about other stuff you insist is absolutely need. Your life is your life. Your decisions are your decisions. And what he's referring to is this person was basically saying like, I need to have some kind of like other income besides just like basic food and shelter because I have other things that I need in my life, like a phone maybe, the ability to buy things that like clothing, etc. um so
Well, they
basically
can be naked at his cult.
yeah, I guess so. So he continues on and says basically what this person was doing was working full time for the CPI with no pay, but with the guarantee that they would be housed and sheltered, or not housed and sheltered, housed and fed. So he goes on to say, but you need to figure out how dedicated you are to communism and if you are ready to leave your old life behind or not. You have one foot living in living biologically and one foot in the revolution, and that's a very
What?
hard way to live. So basically, what he's trying to say there is, you got one foot in the world of I want to be a living human being, and the party demands that you give that up. For our revolution, which again, Caleb Maupin has absolutely no political power in the U.S. and his revolution is going to go nowhere because he himself is not serious enough to launch a revolution. I mean, the guy wears fucking trilbies around all the time. You think he's gonna hop behind a fucking gun and like go to war with the imperialist institution? Absolutely fucking not. Um. So after that, I can help you and be your friend, but I cannot solve all your problems. I cannot make hard choices for you. and then he quotes the Bible to this person. And this is a quote from good old Jesus himself. So it's pretty fucking bizarre that he would use this quote, kind of essentially equivocating himself to Jesus in this person's life. But I forget which exact passage it is, but it's a passage that people see and use a lot when they're talking about your walk with Christ and sort of stuff, especially in evangelical churches, kind of like what I grew up in. This is not an unfamiliar series of passages to me. I'm just currently blanking on which exact book it's from. Um, but this is Jesus. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter in law against her mother in law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. And he's basically telling this person through this biblical quote, give up your family. Um, and then this was one of the person's concerns is like they have family and the family was kind of like depending on them a little bit financially and they felt bad that they weren't able to provide in that way for their family. um Not like dependence necessarily, but like a greater family structure, a mom and a dad and some siblings, I think, that were depending on this person.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah, so this quote goes on. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. Anyone who welcomes you welcomes me, and anyone who welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. Whoever welcomes a prophet as a prophet will receive a prophet's reward, and whoever welcomes a righteous person as a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you that person will certainly not lose their reward. Um, and then he follows that up with bringing the jacket. See you at Wendy's at 1 p.m. Spent a long time thinking about you last night. I know these are very hard times for you. Sorry, I'm probably overthinking all this. I just care about you a lot. Spend a long time in prayer. Talk to you soon. Um, so clearly kind of a deranged person. We don't necessarily need to see this person's reply or anything. I think thankfully at this point they were like, maybe I should get the fuck out of here. And I think they did. Everybody at some point has now gotten out of the CPI because the CPI unanimously agreed through a vote to dissolve after all this came out.
To off itself.
Yeah, basically, the organization is dissolved. One of the things that again, these people, for the most part, um, this is the accounts of people who have kind of been victims of Caleb Mupp, and uh, there's a couple of other small testimonies here and there that are more corroborating evidence rather than people who were victimized themselves. Um. So a couple of things about this. After this came out, Caleb Maupin deleted his Twitter, which probably isn't a good sign. The CPI, as I said earlier, unanimously voted to dissolve itself. So the CPI is no longer an organization. Another thing is, as much as I feel for these folks as victims, I also have to critique them a little bit. They're worried that this action is somehow going to discredit their political position, and I think their political position discredits their political position. Being economically left, heavy quotation marks, and culturally right wing leads to this kind of thing because it's just a different kind of Nazism, and the economic leftism clearly did not mean anything to this guy, and a lot of people were duped into accepting. And all this coming out is really enlightening to someone like Caleb Maupin, who's always preaching something like, the left just wants us to live in squalor and misery and destitution instead of, empowering us to live more rich lives, and more equitable lives. Well, I mean, your own organization was causing people to live literally on the floors of strangers at some points, which made very many of the women involved in this project very uncomfortable, and understandably so, to crash on the floor of a complete stranger's house that has been vouched for only by this weird guy who probably keeps trying to proposition them or tell them that they need to like perform sexual favors for him in order to like move up the ranks of his garbage little organization. Um, so I still have no sympathies for their politics. I think their politics are unhinged garbage. I don't think that gives anybody right to abuse people in this way. There's a lot more than like this is one of the most egregious situations of like manipulation I saw. Again, this person, So first, I mean, to give a little more backstory on this person was at a conference with Caleb Maupin and said, "Hey, I need to make this flight. I just started a new job, and if I don't make this flight, I won't be home in time to go to my first day of work." Uh, Caleb basically made them miss that flight. And they of course did not get their job because they didn't show up on the first day, and so they were fired for that. And that's when Caleb swoops in as the, "Oh, I'll take care of you. I'll make sure that your needs are met. Also, if you're having trouble finding regular work while you're trying to work full time for my organization, maybe what you could do is you could do some sex work on the side. And then also conveniently, I'm going to become one of your clients pretty soon after you start doing sex work." So really kind of like insanely manipulative behavior. This is one of the worst circumstances that he put somebody in, I think. But there's plenty of other pretty devilish shit that he did while the owner of this organization. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I was saying, the economic left, culturally right thing never works because cultural rightism is about removing people's rights. Like, it's about the oppression of people. So uh, you can't. I mean, one of the most surefire ways to oppress a group of people is to fuck with their financial. And if you're not in a system of finances, fuck with their material like conditions. Um, especially Caleb Maupin's revolution hasn't happened yet. We're not living in a communist utopia or anything like that. So these people do have to live partly in the world of, making their biological life work.
Your
Using his terms here.
your
They
need for food is
yeah.
disgusting.
They have to live one foot in the world of this is the system we have, and if I don't abide by certain rules of the system, i.e., having a job, paying my rent, helping my family who is maybe falling on some hard times, then bad things happen to themselves and all those people, and at the same time. Um, if their quote unquote revolution or their project was something I agreed with, it needs to be something extracurricular to that basic need of making it in this shitty fucking financialized hellhole we've created, right?
Yeah.
Um and and I mean that's I'm not, please nobody ever take this podcast to be something revolutionary. um but I treat it as like a project for helping people understand the world. Um, but I do it all in my free time. I would never make John, as much as we joke about it, I would never make John take this on as like his only source of income, while we're barely making ends meet on the production cost of this fucking thing, right? Like that's insane. And I would be a really shitty person if I actually did that. And John, I don't have a gun pointed at you right now, but could you please confirm that I have not forced you to try to make a living off of this?
So technically, but I keep getting Google Calendar reminders for my operation to become a non-biological, which is kind of weird.
We're,
a
we're gonna
little, a little
we're gonna replace
concerning.
all your human need parts with robot parts. Lithium batteries are cheap right now, so you should actually be thanking me because
It's cheaper than gas.
yeah, well, it's cheaper than well, yeah, I mean gas powered John. Come on, I'm a climate activist. No, yeah, I mean, by all means, politically agitate, but requiring people that believe in your project, whatever your project is, to give up any semblance of living decently is pretty fucked up shit, in my opinion, my estimation, I guess. Um, so yeah, if you people out there want a greater insight into someone like Caleb Maupin and how Caleb Maupin operates, other things I didn't get into through the Nazbol episodes, which I didn't get into because I don't give a shit about, things like YouTube drama. I think it's useless to talk about it. But in this context, it's kind of funny. Caleb Maupin is infamous for basically saying that everybody with like left wing politics on YouTube and Twitch and whatever other streaming services people might use. He's infamous or famous or routinely mocked for believing that they're all federal agents or like CIA plants or this, that, and the other. And it's like, come on, man! Like that's such a fucking like cope for the fact that people are just saying like, hey, you seem to have some Nazi views. What's up with that? Um, and so his response, of course, is to call these people state plants, Soros plants, federal plants, whatever.
Did,
Um,
does he go as far to say that they're Jews?
uh, I won't say yes or no on that because I don't recall. Um, and I do try to be honest on this particular show. Um,
Whether or not he's an
I'm sure it's
anti-Semite?
probably been said under his breath, away from the Twitter keyboard. But I'm not gonna accuse him of it necessarily. We're gonna keep this fair and or balanced.
Yeah,
I throw the or in there so Fox can't come after me.
wait till he's like just crashed his car drunk on the side of the road and there's a cell phone video of him.
I saw a video recommendation that I didn't click on, but I kind of wish I did, which was sometimes I really enjoy watching people do like crafts and stuff like that on YouTube as like background to whatever I'm reading or probably playing a game sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, and this one that this page that I follow that makes like really detailed dioramas and stuff like that, like miniature dioramas and stuff. Um, did one that was Mel Gibson's arrest. Now that you're bringing this up, I feel like I need to go back and watch that particular diorama construction. But let's go ahead. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say that you definitely should do that.
Mhm. I'll let you know if it's good or not. So another guy that we talked about last week, and this is a little bit of more of a darker note. Not to say that sexual abuse is a lighter note. But this is more of a darker note, which is the daughter of Alexander Dugin. Her name is Daria Dugin. Was killed in a car explosion. Go ahead and scroll down. So, Moscow, an explosion on the outskirts of Moscow has killed the daughter of a key ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Daria Dugina, 29, was driving a Toyota Land Cruiser Sunday when the vehicle exploded. Authorities in Russia have launched a criminal investigation. She was the daughter of Alexander Dugin, who is often called Putin's brain. Dugin is a prominent Russian nationalist intellectual whose vision of a revived Russian empire came to influence Putin's war in neighboring Ukraine. So a couple of things that need to be stated right off the jump there. The influence that Dugin has over someone like Putin is often overstated. Um, this link is from early on when like this just happened. This happened I think 2 days after our last episode.
Oh,
So I'm not saying that our Nazbol episodes caused Caleb Maupin to have his organization dissolve or Daria Dugin to get exploded in a car. I'm just saying it's not the first time something like this has happened. Danko and I, back when it was just the two of us, did a series of episodes on Stefan Molyneux, and immediately after we finished those episodes, Stefan Molyneux was basically banned from uh, all of his social media platforms. We had nothing to do with it, but I like to think that we have some kind of curse that we put on people.
was
Whenever we do a 3 episode deep dive on somebody, their career gets ruined somehow.
was was his wife's license revoked as a, what is she, a clinical psychologist or something?
I have no idea. I don't know very much about the wives of these guys that we follow sometimes,
Well,
except
he
for
does good.
well, I was gonna say except for Tammy Peterson, Jordan Peterson's wife has now decided to become a public intellectual like him. So that's just a whole new avenue of things for me to shit on, I guess. But go on. What were you gonna say?
Well, I'm pretty sure that a Stefan Molyneux, or however the fuck you say his name, like Shapiro, uh, justifies his like out there bullshit
Oh
medical
yeah, yeah, yeah.
opinions by the fact that their wife has a degree.
Right. Yeah, it's the tried and true. Look, I have a wife, and she doesn't disagree with me when I say these things. Um, yeah, wonderful debate tactic. Very adjacent to I have a black friend, and he says it's cool. You know, all my gay friends don't mind that I call them the F word, sort of stuff. Yeah,
He
it's
said it.
all.
They said it's my word too.
Mhm. It's like the horseshoe theory of not horseshoe as in like the horseshoe shape, but like horseshoe game rules where like as long as you're close enough to something, you're right. You get the point anyways. Um, yeah, no, it's a logic that works like that, of course. So a couple of things about this story. I've done some more digging into it than this NPR article did into it, of course, because NPR sucks, and I just put this article here to remind me that I needed to dispense some information about this. Um, so the first thing we need to understand is this really could have been anybody. Um, the bomb was probably targeting Dugan himself because the vehicle was owned by Dugan. He was originally supposed to be traveling home either with Daria Dugina or traveling home in that vehicle by himself. Um, the FSB investigated this for 2 days and came up with a story that there's a Ukrainian operative that basically kind of snuck into the country, gotten an apartment in Daria Dugina's like general vicinity, and has been stalking her and following her for a while. Decided to launch the attack this particular night, um, and then fled into Estonia immediately after bombing Daria. Um,
They have been
that
looking for a reason to invade Estonia, haven't they?
Probably, man. Um, at this point, anything's kind of possible with that. But this story doesn't really add up to the details of it, which is that the vehicle was owned by Dugan, not Daria. Um, so why would this person, not knowing exactly how the night's travel was going to pan out, because again, Dugan was supposed to be in this vehicle. They kind of at the last minute decided, no, maybe the logistics work better if you just take this car home and I take that car home. So they did like a little vehicle switcheroo at the last minute. Um, Whoever was, setting off this attack probably didn't know exactly who was in the vehicle, but assumed that it was going to be Dugan because it's his vehicle. Um, so it doesn't make sense that this person has been stalking his daughter. Why would you
No.
stalk his daughter instead of him if you're trying to kill him? Um, so the story doesn't really add up. It's clear that the target was himself. They accidentally got his daughter, and now they're having to like make up some bullshit. Other things about this Ukrainian operative, it's been rumored that she was with. So the Ukrainian operative is a woman apparently. It's been rumored that she was with her 12-year-old daughter, and then after the explosion, they both escaped to Estonia. They named this person and a bunch of unhinged wackos on the internet of course like dox this person and all their information and are submitting it to the Azov battalion, which is the Ukrainian neo-Nazis. Or no, not the Azov battalion, sorry. um Fuck, I got my story mixed up there, I guess. But they've been like submitting it to like Russian extremists and stuff like that. Like, oh,
Yeah.
here's the Ukrainian lady that you need to kill. Whatever. um, so that's the FSB story, and the FSB is like it's the Federal Security Service for Russia. Kind of adjacent to like what we would consider the FBI as like a federal investigative sort of uh uh organization.
These
Um,
guys?
yeah, I think those are FSB guys. I don't actually know what their uniforms look like, to be honest with you. Um, but I assume since they're doing the investigating that they're the investigators. But like I was saying, this really kind of could have been anyone. So Ukraine obviously has some reasons to dislike Dugan. And again, while I think Dugan's importance in Putin's like decision making is vastly overstated, Dugan does ultimately kind of belong to a general intelligentsia that talked Putin into this war, has fiercely advocated for the war in Ukraine. Um, Even as early back as like 2014, 2015, when Putin was, I guess, still somewhat rational about this and wanted to solve the issue of the Donbass, like diplomatically, which of course Ukraine didn't let them do. And so again, that's on Ukraine. So Ukrainians probably have good reason to hate him because uh, the war that's being fought in their country right now is the war that Dugin advocated for fiercely. And of course, he's not the only one, and Putin probably has many of his own reasons for engaging in this war, of course. But it is what it is, and he's seen as a Putin ally. So Ukrainians have a reason to hate him. Um, Another group of people who probably have a reason to hate Dugin is the Russian oligarchy. They have the power, the means, and the wealth to do something like this, and they've got reasons to hate Dugin because Putin's war in Ukraine has cost them basically like all of their untold riches. Now they're only like filthy rich instead of being like ungodly rich, and
Yeah,
and that upsets them, of course.
they've only got a few billion in the bank.
Right. Yeah. So this war that a lot of people think folks like Dugin talked Putin into has cost the rich ruling elites quite a bit. So maybe they're trying to send some kind of message to Putin like, hey, we still have some power even though you think you own everything. Uh Another motivation is maybe Putin himself. Having been talked into this absolute clusterfuck of a war that is really not going well at all. Heavy losses on both sides, of course, but you would expect that something as large as Russia would be able to kind of immediately crush Ukraine. That's not been the case. Um, you've got a really unmotivated military force, a really demoralized military force, because a lot of these people are conscripts who don't really have any choice and don't have any reason. Um, More importantly, to fight in Ukraine, and so you have a situation like Vietnam, where the draft gets all these people that don't actually want to shoot at any Vietnamese people.
So they
And
don't.
and so they don't. They shoot around them intentionally, as studies have shown. Like, uh, many troops in Vietnam were actually shooting at quote unquote the enemy because they didn't want to kill anybody. They didn't want to be there. So you have a similar situation like that, and Putin may see this as like kind of you betrayed me with like your philosophy or your uh demand for me to go to war sort of thing. um Dugin's not the only person who has advocated for this war. Of course, there's plenty of other broke brain Russian fascists who have been advocating for this war. But Dugin is one of the more popular ones, of course, and so he may be, getting some mild bit of revenge, or tried to get some mild bit of revenge by attempting to take Dugan out this way. It
So
also,
you're saying that Putin is a bit mad about making policy decisions based off of Soviet Nazi erotic fan fiction.
essentially, yeah.
Okay.
Um, and uh, another motivation that Putin may have is something like this. Uh, and especially since the FSB has officially declared that this is a Ukrainian operation. It galvanizes the people against Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is not entirely popular. A lot of people in Russia don't see the reason for it. Um, there's been a lot of protests in Russia that have been against the war. So maybe he's trying to galvanize the people. Maybe he's trying to get some mild bit of revenge on somebody who belongs to a group of people who talked him into an absolute clusterfuck of a war. And then there's another aspect of this, which isn't confirmed or anything like that. But there's a group called the National Republican Army, which is anti-Putin. Um, uh, they've claimed responsibility for this attack, and they basically said, like, if you're a friend of Putin, we're gonna fucking kill you. And we're seeking to eventually kill Putin as well. Um,
Good for them.
yeah, I can't really find any reason to disagree with them, except they might also be crazy Russian Nazis as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so who knows?
Yeah. I
Not a lot
mean,
of good people involved in this situation from any angle you look at it, unless you've got some kind of brain disease. Um, what were you gonna
it's like
say?
what's the old adage? A broken Nazi's right once a day or something.
Yeah, a broken Nazi is Reich 3 times a day. Um, little play on words there. So what I would suggest people do with this story and a lot of other stories coming out of both Ukraine and Russia, especially from the perspective of any kind of national media, don't fucking trust any of it. The most we can say for certain is that Daria Dugina was in a vehicle and that vehicle exploded. Um, Trusting any one narrative from anybody that's coming out of this is really kind of a logical misstep, because um, Ukraine, especially, and anything involved with Ukraine, is the subject of massive amounts of disinformation and misinformation. And this goes for Russian media, this goes for U.S. media, this goes for international media. Um, it's really kind of like bizarre and almost criminal, the degree of like reporting that's going on about Ukraine, and like just how absolutely fucking false a lot of it is. But news agencies just kind of like run with one state line or the other. Um, yeah, and CBS recently had this documentary about the war in Ukraine. I think it was CBS. That's what's coming to my mind. It might have been MSNBC, but I think it was CBS. And part of the documentary, they reveal that a lot of weapons that are being shipped from the U.S. to Ukraine are no longer accounted for in any way. And we're not talking like a small percentage. We're talking like 70% plus. Nobody has any idea where the fuck they've gone. Um, I forget which group it was that asked them to redact that from their documentary, but CBS complied, and so like they just completely removed the segment on all these missing weapons in Ukraine. Um, the reasoning given was that they put a guy in charge of tracking the weapons down, and in less than a month, he somehow found where all these weapons, ended up. Um, no citation or evidence needed for that claim. We're just gonna believe it, sort of thing. Um, and you worked in the military alongside me.
Yeah.
We made stuff disappear all the time, and that was stateside
Yeah.
in a situation where we had to be careful about it. This is a incredibly chaotic war zone, and things are disappearing as they always do. And this is one of the reasons why Army Ukraine and the way we have is such a like drastic mistake, because we don't know where these arms are going. We know that there's a very large radical far right extremist element in Ukraine. Um, and now we've just given these people a shit ton of fucking weapons, right?
Yeah.
So
Have they lost HIMARS? Or is it mostly like rifles and pistols and stuff?
I didn't look into the scale of the weapons that they lost. I know at the very least a lot of small arms have gone missing. I would not be surprised if some what do they call them, javelins have gone missing as well. Um, because those are just kind of like being distributed willy nilly. Regardless, HIMARS, I would suspect, have a little bit more control, because those can hit targets in other countries we care about.
Yeah.
So I would
You would
suspect that. Yeah, I would hope. I guess.
hope. Yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say hope. Yeah.
In as much as we're doing like a really fucked up thing by like provoking this war to keep continuing on, and basically ensuring that there's never going to be any time for negotiations. I would hope at the very least we're keeping our promises to the rest of the NATO countries that we've forced into this situation with that we've oriented ourselves over there.
Yeah.
But you never know. The American war machine is evil and insane, and does lots of bad stuff all the time without
And
thinking.
and just like unnecessarily incompetent.
Incredibly unnecessarily incompetent. And if you think, like, wait a second, Michael Deebs was once in charge of like sensitive radio equipment that needed secret clearance to work on. Yep, that's the military, baby.
Yeah.
They trusted me, so
But
basically anybody.
the things that we made disappear, because like it's like you have to make things disappear because you've been the SOPs and general orders have like worked you into
these little corners where like some unit drops off a piece of equipment that they say was destroyed 5 years ago, and you're looking at the serial number of a piece of equipment that by all technical means does not have the right to exist anymore.
Yeah. And
it's got secret clearance level technology in it, and you're told you're not allowed to have that, yet you do have it, and it's no fault of your own. So what you do is you beat the shit out of it with a hammer until it's a fine dust, and then you go down to the beach, undisclosed location, undisclosed beach, and you bury it as far down as you can dig in the middle of the fucking night.
oh, I just said that it was computer parts and gave it to the Dermo lot.
This is computer parts as you're like putting it into the e-recycling bin at the Best Buy.
Hey,
Um,
a Marine works there. He's an idiot.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the obvious outcome of giving a bunch of weapons to a country that has an extremist element in it. Another thing about Ukraine that's really funny, and by funny I mean bad, probably verging on like really bad. Um, Despite the fact that they're in the middle of a fucking war, the Ukrainian parliament somehow passed a piece of legislation that effectively bans all unions in their country. Um,
All unions of what?
like labor unions.
Oh,
Like if you're an electrician, you don't get to have an electricians union anymore.
oh, wow.
Again, no idea where they found the fucking time to do this. Given the fact that they're in the middle of a fucking war. But they still decided to do it anyways. Um, doesn't have any positive implications. It's part of I don't think we've really gotten into this too much on the podcast, but one of the really bizarre aspects of what's happening in Ukraine and really is underreported and not talked about very much by the mainstream media, and then is kind of derided as like being like a fringe sort of reporting, um, is Zelensky uh, basically by executive order kind of banned like any opposing political parties from existing the second the war broke out. He got a bunch of dissenting voice media banned. The fact that RT, yeah, is Russian state media, but RT was banned from the U.S. Basically overnight, which you know I don't think you should get all your information from RT. I also don't think you should get all your information from CNN. Um, you should probably look at a lot of different sources and kind of like use your better judgment and good thinking to determine for yourself what the truth is on a lot of subjects, or what I think is uh, more useful is to determine that nothing nothing in this situation is true or validatable until like I don't know 10 or 20 years later from now. Let's assume the war ends tomorrow. We won't know the truth about a lot of these things until
Oh,
like a
yeah.
decade or two later. Um, and the way we're gonna find out about them is like the same way we find out about like all the CIA ops in South America, where it's just kind of like this quiet release of information, doesn't really make the news, and somehow we're just gonna like ignore the fact that like hey wait, all the news agencies were like either lying to us or doing really bad reporting to make hundreds of thousands if not like tens of millions of people in America fund this besides just tax dollars, which I think the total amount of money that Congress has given to Ukraine in weapons aid primarily. There's some food aid in there, but it's like mostly weapons aid.
Yeah.
It's reached like 60 billion at this point. Which is outpacing the spending that we did for Afghanistan. So we're putting more money into this war than we put into Afghanistan on the same timeline.
And
So
isn't that like half of the military's discretionary budget?
no,
What's or like a quarter?
I mean, so the military's annual budget is somewhere around 800 billion right now.
Oh, it's that high.
Yeah, it's that high. So I mean, this isn't a insubstantial amount compared to that. But these are being voted on and passed through Congress, uh, without like
Any,
any kind of discussion about whether or not we should be doing this anymore.
yeah.
And a lot of these are like almost unanimous votes with a couple of outliers. I
And
wouldn't even say AOC is one of those outliers. I would say somebody like Cory Bush and Ilhan
Marjorie.
Omar are like the outliers in these sort of things.
Well, the Republicans technically have people speaking against it. It's just their craziest people.
Yeah, it's your Rand Paul types who are just against the government ever doing anything. Um, and that's their like entire premise for what they base their no vote on these things off of um is the government shouldn't be doing anything at all, so why are we giving money to Ukraine? And I agree with them on the why are we giving money to Ukraine part. The government not doing anything at all is like, well, then don't take taxes from me anymore, and also fuck off, and also kill yourself, Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Go get into another lethal fight with your neighbor or something, please.
I really hope that he got his ass beat.
No, he did. That was like one of the funniest stories, I think. Shoot, it must have been like 2014, 2013, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Rand Paul and his neighbor got into a disagreement, and his neighbor beat the shit out of him. But yeah, I think that's enough on the Ukraine Dugan situation. Now we got to go more domestic politics again. So Paul Pelosi, good friend of the show, husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He got sentenced for his little DUI incident that happened in April, maybe. It says it somewhere in the article. Doesn't really matter what month it happened in. Happened recently, earlier this year. He gets 5 days in jail, 3 years of probation in his DUI sentencing.
Nancy's gonna put him in a home.
No, probably not.
But she'll build a nursing home in their house.
Yeah, right.
And get abusive orderlies and nurses.
Not not because she hates her husband. It's just a kink of hers.
Any type of human suffering gets Nancy wet.
Yeah. Remind yourself, this is the person who thanked George Floyd for dying for judicial freedoms to be investigated.
In ecstasy, thanked him.
Yeah. Really insane person, honestly. Deranged. San Francisco, the husband of U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi pleaded guilty Tuesday to a misdemeanor driving under the influence charges related to a May crash in California's wine country and was sentenced to 5 days in jail and 3 years probation. Paul Pelosi already served 2 days in jail and received conduct credit for 2 other days, Napa County Superior Judge Joseph Solga said. Paul Pelosi will work 8 hours in the court's work program in lieu of the remaining day. So basically, he was sentenced to 5 days, and I'm like, well, you already did 2 days, and you've been such a good little Boy Scout. We're going to give you an extra 2 days off. And then what you got to do for 8 hours one day is come in and sit down at a computer and type some words into it or something. We don't really actually care. Probably what you're going to do the whole entire time is schmooze with other people because you're a rich piece of shit. And we like those kind of people hanging around the court office for some reason.
Yeah, it's probably filing it's probably got I'm guessing he's a lawyer. Like, these people are always lawyers.
I think he's a real estate guy. I don't know if he has a law degree, but I know he's a huge real estate investor. So I think he might just be a realtor that made it rich. Also, I mean, he comes from a rich family, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, basically, you got the old slap on the wrist treatment. Despite the fact that his DUI charge, go ahead and scroll down. State law allows for DUI misdemeanor defendants to appear through their attorney unless ordered otherwise by the court. So basically, he didn't even show up for his own sentencing. Well, that was below him, so he had his lawyer show up for the sentencing and receive the sentencing for him. As part of his probation, Paul Pelosi will also be required to attend a 3-month drinking driver class and install an ignition interlock device where the driver has to provide a breath sample before the engine will start. He will also have to pay nearly $7,000 in fines, the judge said. Paul Pelosi was arrested following a May 28 crash in Napa County, north of San Francisco, after a DUI test showed he had a blood alcohol content of 0.082%, just over the legal limit. Scroll down again. There we go. Prosecutors filed the case as a misdemeanor because of injuries to the 48-year-old driver of the SUV. They have declined to identify the driver, saying the person has requested privacy. So it's interesting that they say this was prosecuted as a misdemeanor because of injuries to the 48-year-old driver of the SUV. This is the person who crashed into Paul Pelosi as Paul Pelosi pulled out without looking both directions or being sober enough to drive a vehicle. Um, so the reason that it's interesting, and you can go ahead and go to the next link. Scroll down just a little bit. All right, yeah. Down just a little bit, like put the top just below that video. Yeah. So California has two primary DUI laws for adult drivers: Vehicle Code 23152 AVC, and the other one is BVC, which makes it illegal to drive under the influence of alcohol, and the other one, which makes it illegal to drive with a BAC of 0.08% or greater. Most people arrested for DUI in California get charged with both of these sections. Driving under the influence of drugs, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So most DUI cases are prosecuted as misdemeanors, but the offense may be charged as a felony if someone is injured. The other driver was injured, so they could have prosecuted this as a felony, and they declined to do that. If you have a prior felony DUI conviction, blah, blah, blah. If you've done other DUI stuff, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and go to the next link, which I am loath to say is a Fox News article, but it's sad when you have to go to Fox News to get and of course they have ulterior motives and why they're doing more actual investigation into this matter than your average lib news source. And it's because they want to undermine someone like Nancy Pelosi. I'm in the beneficial position of wanting to undermine Nancy Pelosi as well, just for way different reasons than they want to. Go ahead and scroll down to that video and play it.
There was a time.
There was a time. But this is the district attorney basically explaining why they prosecuted it as a misdemeanor and not something more serious, even though it could technically warrant this more serious charge. Go ahead.
This has been unusual in sometimes I watch news coverage and talking about a completely different case. And it started way back when I had representatives saying that I had dropped charges. I hadn't even pressed charges yet. And it sort of has gone through this cycle of these bizarre facts, none of which are true. I can just assure you that my attention, my focus has been on what the evidence has been as it's come into the office, and how grateful I am that we have a fully functioning, if a little bit sore, survivor in this case.
Okay, that's actually a different clip than was up when I first put this link in, but I'll go ahead and explain what happened there, because that audio was quiet for some reason. Not your fault, Fox News website's fault. She basically, when she's discussing why it was only prosecuted as a misdemeanor rather than a felony, is her claim is that normally when they prosecute as a felony, what you're looking for is like really serious life-threatening injuries. That's not what the code says. That's not what the law says. Like, it doesn't say only if like you think the injury's real bad. It says if there's an injury. So he could have been held to account. He wasn't. He's He's an influential real estate investor in the area. His wife is a sitting federal congressperson. And he got off incredibly easy despite the fact that he decided to drive drunk and got into a car accident. Um, and the reason I'm bringing up the story is to basically say that there's no equal application of the law in our country.
Yeah.
If this was a poor person, they would have been absolutely fist fucked into like years of debt, probably. Again, charging someone like Paul Pelosi, who's a multimillionaire, $7,000 is like, oh, gee, you really fucking got me there, guys. Um, that means nothing to him. His
No.
one day that he has to pretend to do work at a courthouse is gonna mean nothing. The 3 months of drunk driver training that he has to go to aren't gonna fucking like matter to him because he's probably not
No.
even like fucking show up to them, and nobody's gonna question it. Of course nobody's gonna question it because he's very rich. He has to
Yeah.
install an interlock device on his vehicle. Well, which vehicle? Because he's rich enough to just buy more. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that and driving's probably a novelty for this guy. Like,
well, I
he
mean
doesn't
that's
ha-
like the
he
most
doesn't have to
bizarre.
drive himself.
Yeah, the most bizarre part of the story is you know, why even drive drunk in the first place when you're a multimillionaire? Like, call a fucking Uber or something. Like, I can almost sometimes understand it when a poor person drives drunk, and it's because like, well, I don't want to leave my car there because it might get towed. Um, if I don't, like, especially in California, where parking is limited everywhere. Um, and this
Yeah.
isn't to say, yeah, I totally understand why you drive drunk. You should drive drunk, or it's okay. No, I just understand like the social pressures, the economic pressures that might be on somebody to cause them to drive drunk when they maybe wouldn't think that's a good idea if they were sober. But in Paul Pelosi's case, it's like, dude, you were at like a Napa Valley wine club.
Oh.
What's that?
Oh, no. Oh, nothing. Sorry.
Oh.
I dropped something.
Dropping some hot takes. Yeah, so he's at a Napa Valley wine club, sort of thing. He could just talk to concierge and be like, "Hey, that's my car out there. Make sure it doesn't get towed. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Here's a $20 bill. This is like the biggest tip you've ever got in your life, right?"
Yeah.
And like get away from this situation without any fucking and he could just hire somebody to fucking go get his car the next day. Like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of money you fucking have when you're that rich.
Well,
And so for him,
he probably could have called his executive assistant
exactly, he's
to
got an
drive
assistant. Of
out
course, he's got
his
one.
yeah, to drive out another personal assistant to then drive him in his car back home.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
it's ridiculous.
So, anyways, even though this person has like all the advantages in the world and no excuses to drive drunk, he still got off incredibly easy, and there is no justice in this country.
Nope.
And that's why I brought that video up, or that story up rather. Go ahead and go to the next article here, and this is getting more into our main subject of the night, which I guess I spent a lot of time ranting about other subjects, unfortunately, but we should be able to get through this fairly quickly without too much strain, I think. And so the main subject of tonight is Biden sucks and fuck him. We'll talk about a positive thing that happened recently, but also this sucks. So this headline here: Alabama coal miners must pay $13 million in damages for strike. Biden's NLRB rules. So the NLRB is the National Labor Relations Board. More of a newer thing, and a lot of people were initially sort of optimistic about this Biden NLRB being more progressive because Biden's, said a couple of like pro-union things here and there. He doesn't mean any of them.
No.
I hope everybody realizes. We'll talk later about other lies that he's said that he didn't actually mean, things that he just said to get elected. And being pro-union is one of the things that he said to just get elected.
Yeah.
He has a history of not really being pro-union, not really being for any kind of labor rights, really just kind of hating poor people, if not in speech, then by action. But this particular story is really, really fucking disgusting to me. So yeah, go ahead and go down to the body of the article there. So on August 3rd, the United Mine Workers of America and the Associated Press reported that the subunit of the National Labor Relations Board for Region 10, much of the South, has ordered the union to pay $13.3 million to Warrior Met Coal. About 1,000 workers from 2 mines and 2 above-ground facilities southwest of Birmingham, Alabama, have been on strike against Warrior Met since April 2021, resisting brutal working conditions. Now the Buyden NLRB is demanding that the United Mine Workers Association pay what amounts to United Mine Workers of America. I filled in the blank on that A in my brain. Pay what amounts to $13,000 per striker into the company's pocket. The government says this is reimbursement for security guards, security cameras, repairs, and production loss because of the strike, plus buses for carrying scabs across picket lines.
What?
You're right. Yeah, the last one, like the other ones are like, and then the last one's like, oh, what? Like,
Yeah, like, I might.
We got to pay you for undermining our labor strike.
That's like if I quit my job, if my employer could sue me for the hiring cost of my replacement.
That is a very apt way of describing this. And buses for carrying scabs across picket lines, like, yeah, why should picketers allow you to bring in your other underpaid labor that you're trying to again undermine their movement with, right? Like, so a scab, for those who are uninitiated in labor terms, a scab is somebody that is hired whenever the workforce goes on strike to basically say, like, okay, well, we don't need you workers who are striking anyways. We can hire just anyone and we'll have them work in the mines instead of you. Scabs are very unpopular. We understand the reasons for why a scab might pick up a job like this. And it's because of their own desperate economic situation. Desperate economic situations are kind of par for the course if you are just about everyone in America that doesn't belong to like a certain percentile of people. So continuing with this article, this workforce routinely does 6-day weeks and 12-hour days. The company operates on Sundays and almost all holidays. A hated company policy fires workers automatically if they miss 4 days of work in a year, even because of health problems or family emergencies.
Holy shit.
Right? So calling out sick, and this is incredibly, incredibly shitty, considering that we just had a global pandemic that you're like technically not supposed to go into work for like 2 weeks when you get sick with this thing. Missing 4 days of work. And I will grant that there was probably some temporary provision put into place that if you get sick with COVID, because federal like regulations and federal guidelines say you have to be out for 2 weeks, we're not going to count that against you. But now that we're in the stage of pretending COVID doesn't exist anymore and people are still getting sick with it, it's a pretty shitty policy to have that you can't miss 4 days of work when the bare minimum of a COVID positive test is you're supposed to be out of work for like 7 to 10 days.
Yeah.
So early in the strike, the company offered a raise of $1.50 an hour for 2021 to 2026. Workers retorted that back in 2016, they accepted a $6 an hour reduction when the company declared bankruptcy and threatened mass layoffs if the workers didn't help shore up its profitability. More than 95% of the workers voted no when the United Mine Workers of America leadership put up this company offer as a tentative agreement. Another villain in the story is actually the United Mine Workers of America leadership. Really not doing a good job in bargaining for these people.
Yeah, 4 days.
Right. Yeah. So the 13.3 million NLRB judgment is more than half of the strike pay distributed to 1,000 workers in 16 months. The United Mine Workers of America provides only $350 a week or $18,000 a year for miners' families to live on. The money grab goes to a company that made $146 million in profit for January to March this year and last year paid its CEO 5.7 million. So I don't think I need to spell out why this is fucked up and wrong and shitty and disgusting. The company is the National Labor Relations Board is demanding that strike workers pay a company that has made $146 million in profit despite these strikes, and also pays its CEO $5.7 million. And mind you, CEOs don't do fucking anything in a company. They make at the very best gestural sort of decisions in how the company is going to be run, but more often than not, basically what they're rewarded for is giving profits to the shareholders.
Well, yeah, and so this CEO, because I guess in principle, you can punish management with a strike because the investors or the owners are going to replace leadership and maybe capitulate to the labor's happiness. But this guy's gonna get a fucking bonus,
of course,
while having a major strike.
Yeah. And this falls primarily on the shoulders of the National Labor Relations Board, secondarily on the shoulders of the United Mine Workers of America leadership, not doing a good job in advocating for its people. While I'm extremely pro union, I'm extremely also pro unions that are actually doing shit that matters.
Yeah.
A good example, if people want to look at it, is the union strike of the train operators in the UK.
Yeah.
Those guys are pretty fucking based, and maybe next week if I can find some time, we'll look at how they've been going on TV and how they've been delivering the rhetoric of no, you guys need to get the fuck over the fact that people are striking. And this is how a labor union is supposed to work, and if you don't like it, don't take the train anymore. These guys are sticking to their guns, and they're doing really good advocation for their union members.
I also like the solidarity between other trade unions when one union goes on strike, not that all the other trades go on strike too, but they also support it.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you actually brought that up, because that was a point I was eventually going to get around to, which is a lot of the reason that there aren't solidarity strikes is because the NLRB exclusively prohibits that. So you'll see labor unions support one another whenever one goes on strike, but you'll never see a solidarity strike because that's actually illegal per the NLRB's guidance. and because it's not a legal lawful strike according to their guidance,
And
they're
the fact that there can be that we define what is a legal lawful strike.
right. Another point I'm eventually going to get to, but right. Uh, yeah. The NLRB makes all these rules that kind of explicitly favor the employer rather than the worker. And so the workers are always having to fight on a battleground that is chosen for them at a disadvantage. And kind of exactly what you were saying is that, we determine, or not we, but the NLRB determines what a legal lawful strike is, when the entire purpose of a strike is to do something that is maybe like not legally supported, but has that power to change the working conditions for people, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think there should be very much illegal in a strike, except for like maybe, and I'm only saying this because I have to, I guess, for legal purposes. You shouldn't murder anyone in a strike.
Probably not.
Probably not.
There's always exceptions. I just don't know what those are.
I'm not going to give any guidance on what they are. I'm not going to tell you who to do it to.
I'm just saying.
I believe in a lot of possibilities. But yeah, the very fact that we have this labor relations board that makes all of the decisions on what is an appropriate way to strike. And this goes back to the ruling that they made. So what did the NLRB cite as the reason that these people need to pay $13.3 million? Upgraded security. Well, is that something that you're doing because you're just paranoid about what the workers might do? Or did the workers actually do anything? Because all the reporting I've seen hasn't really shown that the workers were intruding on the mine. And even if they were intruding on the mine, that's their place of work. And there used to be a type of protest called a sit down, where all the workers on the shop floor would just sit down and stop working so that nobody could take their place. And also they were, telling the boss hey, unless you pay us more, you're going to go fuck yourself for a while. So sit downs aren't allowed anymore. But at the same time, it's okay, so you increased your security because what? People were picketing outside your front door. Is that implicitly a threat that requires more security? No, not really. That's your own paranoia that's making you make that decision. And it's bizarre that instead of just paying your workers more, you decide to hire security. And the ultimate intent is that you're just trying to keep these people's wages down, so that they're kind of in a debt peonage to you, because they probably have debts in their real life, and you're their only source of income. And as long as you keep their wages low, they have no choice but to work for you, because you're the only mine company in town, right?
I mean, to be fair, the security personnel probably are cheaper than the actual laborers.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I just think it's funny how that's seen as a cost saving measure to paying your workers more, as the higher security to keep your workers away from your work site.
Unless they apologize and start working again.
Right. Yeah. So really shitty judgment made by the National Labor Relations Board. And again, this is Biden's government. We can't put this kind of stuff on Trump. This is Biden's government. This is completely arbitrary in the decision making process. This is a board that directly reports to the executive branch of government, from my understanding, and therefore Biden could basically say, yeah, don't fucking do that, you fucking weirdos. But he's not going to do that, because
this is one of those. Is this one of the commissions that's like a division of the authority of the president?
Yeah, from my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, like when the president is not weighing in, they make the decisions.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and go to our next Biden story, and we have to be careful in how we talk about this to an extent, I think. So this tweet from President Biden, in keeping with my campaign promise, we'll discuss later why that's not true. My administration is announcing a plan to give working and middle class families breathing room as they prepare to resume federal student loan payments in January 2023. As they prepare to resume federal student loan payments in January 2023. So Biden has been putting a pause on federal student loan payments. It still counts against your credit. I know from personal experience to have debt in this way. I paid off my final like bit of student loans because I'm looking for a home in my personal life right now, and I wanted my credit to be better. So I paid mine off because I didn't expect this to happen. I don't have any regrets about that because putting bets on whether or not some asshole like Biden is going to do something good for you is a pretty bad decision in my estimation. And I had the ability to pay these off. Uh, but so he's kind of already like laying out the game here. So as families are about to go back to paying these student loans that are dominating their lives, I'm gonna give you a little leg up on them. And so he's got this graphic here. The Biden administration's student loan debt plan. $20,000 if you went to college on Pell Grants, which basically means that these are the poorest of the poor. You get a Pell Grant if your family just like has absolutely no fucking like wealth whatsoever. Your family
Well,
is in poverty, and you as the child of that family is in even worse poverty probably.
and despite the odds, fucking was able to get into college that required you to get loans.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, because which middle class families can't afford fucking tuition for their fucking kids either.
Well, it depends on what end of the middle class family you're talking about, because the government definition of middle class is like ranging from like 90 grand a year in income to like 450 grand a year in income, which is obviously like a massive fucking difference.
I think it's like 60,000, or like it's like 58 or 60,000.
Oh yeah, it might be lower, and I might be giving them like too much credit, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure you are because it's
and even like the credit I'm giving them doesn't make it look much better.
no. But like yeah, like the majority of the middle class is in that 58 to 90,000 with two working parents.
Yeah.
And so the majority of the middle class their kids can't get Pell Grants.
Right. So forgiving debt, 20,000 if you went to college on Pell Grants, which means you're poor. 10,000 if you didn't receive Pell Grants, which means you're kind of poor. Forgiveness only applies to those earning less than $125,000 per year. Student loan pause extended one final time through December 31st, 2022. Payment based on income. If you have undergraduate loans, you can cap repayment at 5% of your monthly income. So a refinancing option on top of getting this $10,000 off for most people, $20,000 off if like you fit into a narrower description of debt holders for student loan debt. Go ahead and go to the next link. And I forgot to write down like notes about how I was going to make this all roll out, but the links will tell themselves true. So this is student loan debt statistics for 2022. US student loan debt totals 1.75 trillion as of August 2022.
Jesus.
The table of contents there, average student loan debt is what I'm looking for.
All right.
So bachelor's degree debt, $28,950. Graduate school loan debt, $71,000. Parent Plus loan debt, $28,000. Law school debt, $145,000. MBA student debt, $66,000. Medical school debt, $201,000. Dental school debt, $292,000. Pharmacy school loan debt, $179,000. Nursing school student debt, basically 20,000. So this is broken down. Associate degree in nursing, basically 20,000. Bachelor of Science in Nursing, basically 24,000. Sorry, and then Master of Science in Nursing is $47,000. And veterinary school debt, $183,000. You might notice that some of the most important degrees that people can have in our society incur quite a lot of debt. And granted, people who are doctors are probably going to make a bit of money more than a lot of people will after they, spend a lot of time working pretty shit jobs in the medical, like, doctor field.
Well, unless they become one of the most needed doctors, primary care physicians, because primary care physicians don't really make that much money.
No, they don't. And it's it's fucked up that we make people take out loans so that they can become the people that treat us when we, like, have a boo-boo, right? We all need somebody to treat us when we have a boo-boo. We have a shortage of people who are able to treat us when we have a boo-boo. And part of the reason is because lots of people don't want to take on $201,000 of debt to be the guy that treats you when you have a boo-boo.
Yeah.
Dental school debt, dentists are probably overpaid, but that's because for whatever reason, most insurance companies don't think you deserve teeth, and so they don't pay for it.
Right.
So dentists actually, like, get a lot more money just because of that fact. But they shouldn't have to go, like, you shouldn't, when your teeth get a boo-boo, you have to go to a person who treats your teeth boo-boo. And the person who treats your teeth boo-boo shouldn't be in massive amounts of debt for treating your teeth boo-boo. And if they aren't in massive amounts of debt for treating teeth boo-boos as a profession, maybe they won't charge you quite so much. Pharmacy school, $179,000 debt. These are the people that give you the drugs to help you with your boo. Like, we need them too. Law school, I'm less worried about, because I think all lawyers are shitty liars and they should die probably. No, that's not true. There are some good lawyers out there that do good work, and they're underpaid and underthinked, and they're under these same debt obligations. Under the here's how it should be divvied up. If you seek to become a corporate lawyer, then you should have to pay this whole thing off. If you seek to become, like, a public defender, then you shouldn't have any debt. MBAs, don't do a business degree, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Learn something real.
Veterinary school debt, nursing school debt. Nursing school debt, like, these are the people that help you with your boo-boo. And then veterinary school debt is like, oh, these are the people that treat your dog's boo-boos.
And your livestock.
And your livestock, yeah. Which we need lots of that, because we eat food. That's a thing that we all do. I think is eat food. And even if you're a vegetarian, some livestock goes into that. Hate to break it to you. Things like how fertilizer is made, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not exempt from the farm animal boo-boo debt consulting. You're not exempt from that.
Yeah, or like how many thousands of mice and birds are
chewed
killed,
up, chewed up by fucking threshing machines.
Yeah, and chilling machines and all kinds of other stuff.
If you find a red spot in a loaf of bread that you eat, that is most certainly a mouse's heart. That's probably not true.
Well, yeah, no, that's why they bleach the food.
Yeah, no, that's almost probably exactly why they bleach it, because it's got so much blood all over it. You gotta get all this blood out of our vegan bread. And I don't begrudge vegans. I think, you know, there are ethical reasons to maybe try to eat less meat, and I'm fine with that. I think when we live in mass production times, a little bit silly, a little bit futile. So these are debt amounts that people have. You know, obviously some of these people on the lower end of the debt spectrum are going to be helped quite a lot by this debt forgiveness. People think that, like, oh, you have and by people I mean right-wing lunatics who want to make this a talking point. Think that, like, oh, if you've got a graduate degree, you should be making a shit ton of money anyways. So why are you having
No.
trouble paying off your loan? That's not how graduate degrees work. Lots of people will get graduate degrees in even STEM fields and still not make a lot of money, even though STEM is like the most when it comes to right wing politics, everyone's like, well, yeah, you know, your science, technology, engineering, and what's the M stand for? Fuck,
Mechanics,
is it mechanics?
maybe. I don't know.
I can't remember. If you're part of the STEM degree universe, I'm really bothered by the fact that I can't remember that. Look it up, John. Put it in the Google machine.
Oh, let's see here. Google machine.
But anyways, if you're part of the STEM degree universe, like, you should be making a shit ton of money. That's not true either. You don't have to put periods between it. If you put in STEM, it'll be fine. I promise you. Mathematics. That's why I didn't remember it, because it's not real. No, I'm just kidding. Math is very important. Yeah. That.
I totally.
Well, we don't need to go back to it anyways. Anyways, people think you're working in the STEM degree field. You should be making a shit ton of money. Not necessarily true. A lot of these people end up becoming teachers, and as we all know, teachers make dick for money.
Yeah, like geology, which I guess is kind of sometimes in the STEM field.
It falls under science.
Well, yeah, it does fall under science. I guess I was thinking more of like the engineering thing.
Well,
but,
especially I think science degrees, even though we rely heavily on science degrees often do not get shit for money because they rely on, like, grants and you know, other forms of funding to do their research projects, which are technically, like, really incredibly boring, but also really important to how we develop technologies, or how we, like, do research on things like, I don't know, global climate change, which is important. Like, these people don't make a lot of fucking money for the really, really important work that they're doing.
Well, even if they're in like maybe not necessarily the private sector, but the productive sector, like I forgot what type of geologist it is. I think it's a hydrogeologist, but you need to hire a geologist to build a water reservoir, because it's mostly made out of, you know, the natural earth that you've shored up with some engineering.
Yeah, and you got to do a lot of, like, ground sample engineering and stuff like that, right? Like,
yeah, and that $10 billion water reservoir that was paid out to whatever construction company, the geologists probably only got paid like $65,000-$75,000 a year. Unless they're an oil geologist, then they get like $200,000.
I was going to say that there is a specific branch of dark STEM, which makes a lot of money by working in the oil industry.
resource acquisition scientists get paid well.
Extractive technologies.
That's
I
what it
think
is, yeah.
yeah. Which sometimes leads to genocides in other countries, and that's a different subject for a different time. Go ahead and go to the next link past the one that you so cruelly erased. So we looked at average statistics for all debt holders. There's another element of this that we need to look at, which is we have a pretty decent sized minority in this country that has been historically blocked out of ever being able to own like intergenerational forms of wealth, like houses, due to redlining, or didn't start off with any kind of familial wealth to begin with, and thus had to take on more loans. So this is the black-white disparity in student loan debt, more than triples after graduation. So go ahead and go down. That first bit of the article is kind of all we need to look at, if I recall correctly. The moment they earn their bachelor's degrees, black college graduates owe $7,400 more on average than their white peers. So 23,400 versus 16,000 to white debtors, including non-borrowers in the averages. But over the next few years, the black-white debt gap more than triples to a whopping $25,000 in difference. Differences in interest accrual and graduate school borrowing lead to black graduates holding nearly $53,000 in student loan debt 4 years after graduation, almost twice as much as their white counterparts. While previous work has documented racial disparities in student borrowing, delinquencies, and defaults, in this report we provide new evidence that racial gaps in total debt are far larger than even recent reports have recognized, far larger now than in the past, and correlated with troubling trends in the economy and in the for-profit sector. We conclude with a discussion of policy implications. So, what does this mean for the debt relief that Biden has put out? Well, a lot of these people are, in a lot of cases, going to be Pell Grant owners, thankfully. So they'll get that larger $20,000 forgiveness, but they're still saddled with way more debt in general than their white peers would be saddled with. And this isn't to say that we need to necessarily make this a black versus white issue. That's not what I'm saying at all. What we're eventually going to roll into is why not all of the student debt?
Yeah.
And really,
why do we have student debt?
Yeah, why? And then that's another question we're going to be talking about later on. But it's notable that this policy does way more to impact white people than it does black people, just by the historical disparities of wealth through generations, essentially. This policy, like, despite the fact that it is going to help people, and I think it's a good thing that we're at least forgiving some debt,
doing a thing.
Yeah, at least we're doing something, right? Despite that fact, a lot of people have kind of rightfully called this out as like ignoring the racial issue also tied to this, which is that black people have to take on way more debt because they come from way poorer families, because this country has a history of making their families poorer intentionally. Like, anytime black people manage to get some form of wealth, the government has literally bombed them at points in history.
Yeah. Multiple points. Yeah.
Multiple times. Yeah. Not even once. Like the most bombings that have happened, like aerial bombings that have happened in America, have been at the hands of the US government against black people.
Yeah.
Real fun fact about our cool country. Go ahead and go to the next link, and I think I'm just gonna before we get into this one too far, I'm gonna go ahead and call a, little PP break. That's
Yeah,
cool with you.
Yeah, where's the X? God damn.
No, that's it. That's the post.
This is it.
Yep.
Oh, it's not an ad. Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and start up the P break music, and we'll be right back.
All right.
It occurs to me that perhaps I should put that on some kind of loop. John is not back yet. If you are in the live chat, go ahead and say something at me, I guess. HC, I did see your comment from earlier. Source, trust me, bro. But I was kind of basically saying the same thing, so I didn't call you out. I guess I can handle this particular link on my own, and hopefully John can hear me, so he doesn't have to follow along or anything, or get it reiterated to him, I guess. But basically, this screenshot here is a screenshot from the archived webpage of the Biden-Harris campaign. And as the viewer can see on the screen, and the listener will have me read out, this particular promise from the Biden-Harris campaign is that Biden will forgive all undergraduate tuition-related federal student debt from 2- and 4-year public colleges and universities and private HBCUs and MSIs for debt holders earning up to $125,000. So his initial promise was that he would forgive all debt for everybody making under $125,000. I forget what MSI stands for, but HBCUs stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities, and why you need to parse that out separate from public colleges and universities and private HBCUs and MSIs is kind of bizarre to me. But his promise during the campaign was all student debt under if you make under $125,000, it's going to be all your debt is erased. But don't just take my word for it. Let's go ahead and go to the next link.
Oh.
Oh man, I'm really sad that it didn't link to the right place. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that linked to the right place. There we go.
The video.
Yeah, go ahead and press play on that video on the side there. This is the only format I could find it in anymore because it's like archived bullshit. But Joe Biden at a town hall. I believe this is August 6th, maybe 5th of 2020. So pretty close up to the election of 2020, which happened November. So town hall, August 5th, 2020. Joe Biden talking about student loan debt.
That's why I'm going to eliminate a lot of your student debt if you, in fact, if you come from a family less than 125 grand and you went to a public university. I'm going to make sure that everybody in this generation gets $10,000 knocked off of their student debt as we try to get out of this god-awful pandemic. I'm going to make sure that the opportunities you have are consistent with, for example, if you're a first-home home buyer, you haven't even had the opportunity to gain enough income to be able to have a down payment. The first-term home buyers are going to get $15,000 credit to be able to buy their first home because that's how people accumulate wealth. That's how they get started. That's how they move. We're going to make sure we recognize you, advance you, and make sure that you...
Pause real quick. So, even when he's speaking, despite the fact that his website says everybody under $125,000 annual income is going to get all their debt knocked off. Even when he's speaking, he says, that's why I'm going to eliminate a lot of your student debt if you come from a family less than $125,000. He means making less than $125,000. But, you know, he's doing a Joe Biden rambly shit. Which I can understand. Sometimes I ramble, and he's on a little bit of a time schedule there. But then he goes on to say, I'm going to make sure that everybody in this generation gets $10,000 knocked off of their student debt as we try to get off of this god-awful pandemic. And so that means even people making above $125,000 per year are going to get that $10,000 knocked off of their debt. Would you maybe like to go back to that tweet a couple of links ago, the president one?
Oh, this.
So already we're falling short of the campaign promise. So his campaign promise that we just listened to is everybody gets $10,000 knocked off. The new upper limit is $10,000 knocked off, and if you make over 125 grand, go fuck yourself.
Yep. Well, if your parents make, or I guess it is you. I guess
no, it is you at this point. It is you at this point.
Yeah.
And that is notable to point out that like the way you even can get a loan is usually based off of like how dirt poor your family is. I mean, first off, it determines whether or not you need a loan in the first place.
Yeah.
But like then what the federal government will allow itself to give you as a loan is based off of like, okay, you're poor enough to qualify for a loan, but like how poor are you so that we can give you either a bigger or smaller loan based off of that like poorness.
Yeah. Well, and also there's no mitigating circumstances to like say if your parents refuse to help you with college.
Yeah, right. Which is another thing that, you know, A little bit more on the micro scale of problems. But yeah, lots of people come from families that don't support them. Um, and again, this just goes back to why isn't it free? Why do we make people accrue debt to enter college in the first place? Go ahead and go back to
Yeah,
that clip.
I actually, I didn't, I couldn't even take out a large enough loan to cover my tuition when I was 18 going into college. I had to get scholarships and work.
Yeah,
And I had to take I had to take 18 credit hours to maintain my scholarship also.
which is kind of a heavy load, honestly, when you have to work on top of it.
Yeah. Because I couldn't take out some of my roommates, the loans that they were able to take out, they did have, a little nest egg of a few $1,000s in the bank. But I didn't have that because the federal government told me that my parents should be helping me,
Yeah.
even
Just-
though the federal government can't compel them to help me.
hmm So another thing that he brings up is first term home buyers are going to get a $15,000 credit to be able to buy their first home. Have yet to hear anything about that since he's been elected. That's not even something that's like remotely discussed ever, I think. Student loan debt was discussed a lot because a lot of people are suffering from it, to the tune of $1.75 trillion of student loan debt. So that affects quite a lot of people, and most people don't even have like the fantasy of ever owning a home, I think. Um, yeah, the media, and another thing, when Biden was getting elected, right? Like when the Democratic Party decided Biden's our guy, you got to vote for him so that we beat Trump. One of the things they always said is like, yes, we're gonna vote for Biden and we're going to hold his feet to the fire. We're going to really hold him to account. We're going to make sure he follows up on all of his promises. Turns out none of those people meant what they said. Of course. I called this like, I don't know. I don't remember exactly when Biden became the Democratic Party frontrunner, but like the second he did, I was like, yeah, none of these people are serious. They're not going to hold Biden to account. We're never going to see like 1/10 of the promises that he's given. The only reason that like we're getting the student debt relief is he's got to do something, right?
Yeah, the bare minimum of a single promise.
Yeah. So far his agenda has failed to do anything. The infrastructure bill is a corporate welfare bill. The chips bill, which is supposed to help semiconductor production in the United States, is another corporate welfare bill. Um,
Oh yeah.
and then, giving $60 billion to Ukraine without like really considering what we're doing there, or like why we're even involved in this in the way that we are as a proxy war. And so people are rightly critical of Biden, and I think the criticism of Biden is even extending into some pockets of more center lib sort of spheres where they're like, well, it's kind of weird that like he really can't actually do anything, and it seems like Joe Manchin's actually the president, because anytime the president wants to do something good, Joe Manchin says no, and the president's like, well, did my best.
Yeah,
Um,
and the president is going to Joe Manchin's office, isn't he?
I mean, that's happened a couple of times. Another
Yeah.
thing that I bring up on the Instagram story all the time is that Gail Manchin, the wife of Joe Manchin, has a completely like arbitrary role in what's called the Appalachian Economics Board, I think, or it's the Appalachian Forum or some shit like that. It's the Appalachian one thing or another.
Yeah.
And basically her role on that is advising how the federal government invests in Appalachia. And of course, there's been like rampant corruption ever since she like had this board position, uh, supporting all of Joe Manchin's other corrupt practices and stuff like that. So if he really wanted to punish Joe Manchin, this completely arbitrary position that he's put Joe Manchin's wife in, he could just eject her from that position and be like, no, you're not allowed to like work the system in this way anymore, until you like start working with me, start uh, doing the policy sort of things that I want to do. And the fact that he hasn't done that means that he's not serious about any of his promises, any of the so-called like projects that he wants to work on. The infrastructure bill, the Build Back Better bill, right? Like a complete fucking farce from day one.
Yeah.
If he wanted to leverage any kind of power over somebody like Joe Manchin, he could do it immediately by saying, all right, Gail, you're actually out of that position because I just get to make this decision as the executive office, right?
Yeah.
And he hasn't done that. So that tells me he's not actually serious about any of these propositions. And you know, we're going to keep looking into
Well-
how unserious he is into these propositions.
Well,
go
yeah,
ahead.
and he's the president is essentially the leader of their political party while they're in office.
Right.
He should
And-
be making everything that is Joe Manchin politically toxic to anybody.
Yeah. And
Like
and he's not.
no politician should want to talk to Joe Manchin in case they get primaried with the support of the president.
Yeah. And that's, you know, ultimately how the Democratic Party does not work.
Yeah.
And why it can't be seen as some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Some kind of solution to the you know, capitalist hellhole that we've created for ourselves.
Yeah.
All of the progressive candidates from the Democratic Party, you know, the kind of like insurrectionary Democratic candidates being funded by, you know, like the DSA and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All of them have met resistance from the actual Democratic Party structure, have been outfunded by all of them. This has happened in several cases where the Democratic Party has endorsed like the shittiest shit lib that is almost like completely in step with every Republican and even some like fringe Republican beliefs. They've supported these people over the progressive candidates, and what's even worse than that is the Democratic Party has actually intentionally funded extreme right wingers, thinking that like, hey, if we put this crazy person up against our more like centrist person, the crazy person is going to lose, right? And that hasn't really worked out in the math. That used to
Oh my
work
God.
every now and then previously, but now that like everything has become about like Trump aggrievement politics on the right, this doesn't work anymore, and it's because they're not like paying attention to the actual political circumstances of our country right now. And rather than give people a candidate that wants to improve material conditions, the Democratic Party is trying to double down on centrist politicians who don't want to do anything for anybody except for corporations, and they're dismayed every time they keep losing. And so that's why Biden ultimately has to do something like this student debt relief, which I'm glad is happening, even though more of it should be happening. Because, you know, like I'll take any win that the working class gets, sort of thing. But the reason that Biden is doing this is because he knows that his party's fucked in the midterms.
Yeah.
He knows that like it's on a knife's edge whether or not his party wins in the midterms, and so now he has to throw some bread out to the people so that like and Trump did this too with his stimulus package. And you know, one of the positives of the Trump administration was Trump was so easily led by like popular opinion. that he would just fucking do anything, even if it was like completely counter to um like the more standard liberal political notions, right?
Yeah.
Like Nancy Pelosi intentionally fucked up the negotiations for a stimulus package because Nancy Pelosi didn't actually want us to have a stimulus package when Trump was president. And Trump was like, no, the people want this and I got to give them this. Otherwise, I'm going to lose all my MAGA heads, right? So he made it happen because of that. And
Yeah.
Biden's the opposite, and that like he's going to give us the very least that he can possibly give us, just so that we like feel that we owe him something and we owe the Democratic Party something, and we see them as somehow better than the Republican Party, even though they both work like hand in hand with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's like the safety guy at a job site that, you know, you decide to choose a tool that has like no safety guards, and it's throttled up way too high, and he's like, why don't you use that big ancient fucking tool that has all of its fucking safety guards to keep you from falling on the blade and all that other shit. And then you're like, well, that tool doesn't actually work, you
Right.
know. Yeah, at least I can cut something with this thing myself, mostly.
Well, yeah, and then the other
But-
thing is like the reason that safety guy exists is actually to just like deflect responsibility from the company. So the safety
Yeah.
guy can be like, yeah, well, I gave him the training on, you know, March 5th, 2021 at 9 a.m. and he decided not to follow any of my safety guidelines, even though the company put him in a position where he couldn't follow any of my safety guidelines. But he decided not to follow any of my safety guidelines, and so he's actually at fault, not the company.
And actually, that sounds like Democrats too, blaming
Yeah, no,
voters.
that's exactly what I'm saying.
For
Yeah,
them
it's-
being unelectable.
it's all the same aspect, just on like rather than a micro level, a macro level. It's the PMCs, the professional managerial class mindset.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go to the next link.
Next link. NASA? No, NASFA.
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 National Association of Student Financial Aid Administrators.
Ugh. If there ever should be a building with all of its members burned down.
Well, I don't know. They seem okayish.
I don't know. I just
I
hate
understand
the
where
word
you're coming from.
administrator though.
Yeah, that's a real red flag there, of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go. Yeah, so let's look through the article real quick. Never mind. Sorry. Highly redacted student loan forgiveness memo becomes public, has existed since April. This is an article from 2021. So, the year that Biden takes office, he commissions this the student loan forgiveness like investigation. This investigation concludes in April. He takes office January 21st, 2021. I mean, technically he takes it January 2020 or January 20th, 2021. But you know, he's not doing any real work until the next day. January 20th is inauguration day. So he commissions this investigation into like, what am I allowed to do as the head of the executive branch in the U.S. government to forgive student loan debt? This investigation concludes in April of 2021. So mind you, we're in what, August 2022?
Yes.
And we're just now getting like some kind of action on this thing that's existed since April of last year. So important to note that this could have been handled probably like a year and a half ago, but wasn't. The second thing that we need to look at in this is the White House has reportedly had a long-awaited memo outlining its potential authority to forgive student loan debt for months, but has yet to publicly release the full memo despite calls from Democratic lawmakers to do so. The existence of the heavily redacted memo was first reported by The New Yorker late last week, and though the memo does not contain much information regarding President Joe Biden's executive authority to unilaterally wipe out student loan debt for millions of borrowers without legislation from Congress, it does show that the White House has had the memo for more than 6 months. We're going to take a quick detour from this article and go to the next link. When these people say heavily redacted, this is what they mean. For the viewer, I don't need to really tell you what's happening here. But for the listener, we are looking at some correspondence, some government correspondence that has giant pink blocks put over basically every part of its writing. So go to the top real quick. So United States Department of Education, Office of the General Counsel, draft attorney work product privileged and confidential, predecisional and deliberative. To Miguel A. Cardona, he's the Secretary of Education. From Emma Lenny, acting General Counsel. Date April 5th, 2021. Subject: the Secretary's legal authority for broad-based debt cancellation. Immediately following that, giant pink block. And these pink blocks are all redacted information. So then you have nothing essentially but headers and footers.
Page numbers. Got the page
Well,
numbers.
yeah, that's what I mean by footers. Page 4, keep going. Go until you see any actual text. Okay, so all the way through page 7, the entire fucking thing is redacted. And then you have some correspondence between some people with like really choice redactions and like, hey, what we might actually be able to do is blank. That's gone. Again, this is what the
Jesus.
Biden administration like decided to release. We don't need to look at like the individual messages, but keep scrolling through and keep looking for those pink blocks. Massive pink blocks everywhere we go. Redacted information after redacted information. The entire thing is a fucking joke. A lot of it, the unredacted portions, a lot of times are just like, hey, we can meet at this time to this time. Does that work for you? Sort of stuff. Also, we should give Brian the opportunity to review, and one comment bubble asks him to weigh in based on his institutional knowledge. That's me reading an actual these are just emails back and forth between people. They're not like the actual ruling on whether or not the executive branch can eliminate all student loan debt. And so the question we have to ask ourselves when we look at something like this is, why are they hiding all the information about how much student loan debt the executive branch can eliminate by the stroke of a pen, right? Lots of legal scholars say it's all of it. He could just get rid of all of it. It's not something that we need to even question at this point. So, why redact all this information? And then now it comes to pass that apparently he can wipe out at least up to $20,000, depending on certain qualifiers, which don't make any sense to any kind of like legal jurisdiction, and is really just kind of like an arbitrary measure of what he can erase, right? Whether or not you have a Pell Grant or don't have a Pell Grant doesn't really mean anything to the executive power structure. He can either do up to $20,000 or probably more than that, according to a lot of legal scholars. So the Biden administration just completely redacted all the information that they could possibly release on this subject. And so what we're getting is like a pittance version of what he could actually do, which is eliminate all the student loan debt. Go ahead and go back to the article previous. So a first draft of the memo titled "The Secretary's Legal Authority for Broad-Based Debt Cancellation" has existed since April 5th, just weeks after the memo was first requested, and days after White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain announced the White House had asked the Department of Education and the Department of Justice to review Biden's legal authority to cancel student debt. The memo consists of almost completely redacted pages and internal emails obtained by the debt collective, along with the memo show. The memo consists of almost completely redacted pages and internal emails obtained by the debt collective, along with the memo show education department officials on April 3rd saying education department would likely be preparing an updated version of the memo prepared in February. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, we miss a boss queen, in February said for the first time that the administration was reviewing its legal authority to cancel student loan debt and that the White House had requested the memo on a matter. Virtually the only portion of the memo left unredacted refers to the authority Education Secretary Miguel Cardona possesses that allows him to extend the interest-free payment pause on federal and federally held student loans. So that's where we're getting all these federal student loan pauses from. Miguel Cardona basically has free reign to pause those. And that's the only like unredacted portion, because the White House wasn't sure if they wanted to like release the information that they could just cancel student loan debt without asking anybody else, which, as we've seen now, they can do. Democratic lawmakers have for weeks been pressuring the White House to release the memo. In a letter sent to Biden and Cardona last month, a group of Democratic House lawmakers led by Representatives Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, urged them to release the long-awaited memo. The newfound existence of the memo and the knowledge that it has existed for months has renewed activists and progressive lawmakers' calls for Biden to offer widespread student debt forgiveness for millions of borrowers with the flick of a pen, which it turns out he can fucking do, as we're learning now. This article is from November of 2021.
Well,
so
I
almost
mean,
a full year ago.
They were already trying to poison the well that they couldn't during the campaign, right? Like that it would be something that they would fight for, if I remember correctly.
So no, it was immediately after the campaign ended and Biden won, that the rhetoric changed from "I'm going to remove a bunch of your student debt," and the discussion became, "We're looking into how we can do it." So it was kind of like immediately after Biden gets elected, he's like, "Hey, look, Jack, we're gonna like work on figuring out if we can, you know, even shit libs like Elizabeth Warren were saying at least cancel up to $50,000 worth of student loan debt." I think because she does have some heart somewhere in that like snake body of hers, and and also like understood that black debtors like own way more debt than a lot of white debtors do. So somewhere in there was a lot of people arguing for like way more loan forgiveness, and then some people calling for universal loan forgiveness, which is probably what should happen. Go ahead and go to two links from here. So we're gonna skip the redacted hellhole. We don't have to watch that video. I'm not here for the video. But the headline is actually why we're here. This is CBS News. Forgiving $10,000 in student debt could cost the U.S. $300 billion. That's a headline. This isn't how costs work. First off, we've been led to believe things like trickle down economics through folks like Reagan. That's never been true because rich people only need to buy so many things to be happy, or like not as miserable as they usually are. You can only buy so many toys with the money you have, And when you kind of like reach that plateau of like, I've got this much money and these many toys to buy, what you end up doing is you just save it. And so trickle down economics is a fucking lie. However, it's been shown time and time again that if you give a bunch of buying power to people who are extremely poor, they start buying the things that they've been like needing to buy for a long time. Maybe like a new mattress, for instance, something like really essential as a need
Yeah.
that they haven't been able to buy, and they've been sleeping on some like bed bug infested nightmare instead because they haven't had the money to buy anything better. When you empower poor people with material conditions, they end up doing way more for the economy than empowering rich people, right?
Oh yeah. They buy a new water heater where they hire an electrician and a plumber so that it can be
Exactly.
installed. Yeah. They don't commission a super yacht.
Right, which does very little for the economy at large, but does very well for like a select group of individuals. So forgiving $10,000 in student debt could cost the US 300 billion. Well, how much is it going to return in poor people who wouldn't be able to buy anything regardless of like their or or not regardless, but otherwise of this forgiveness? Um how much is it going to improve the US economy? How much is it going to actually pay back into itself? Probably quite a fucking lot.
Yeah.
So this is a really disingenuous way of reporting on it. Go ahead and hit up the next link.
Almost hit the X.
Yeah, would have been real salty about that one. We haven't even looked at it yet. A thing that happened in the last year or two is what was called the PPP loans, right? And these were loans that were given out because the economy was doing really bad due to COVID. Um, and this headline from NBC is government has forgiven nearly 400 billion in COVID relief PPP loans, federal watchdogs say. Um, this is actually probably a low estimate. It's probably more like 450 to 500 billion, but we're not here to argue the semantics, I guess. How much rhetoric did anyone ever see from the establishment, congressional people, the right wing, about this $400 billion in PPP loans being forgiven? Basically,
Yeah.
none, right?
None. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I heard a single, and in fact, it's like the only thing that I've heard real life people of different political persuasions agree on in the last like I don't
Yeah.
know, 6 years.
Because it was rightly seen as a payout to the rich. If you were a person who owned a business, you could just apply for one of these loans. They were essentially interest-free loans that you could get. So you get a shit ton of money. You can take that money and invest in something else. And then at the end of that, you can get this loan forgiven in a lot of cases. So again, this is empowering the people who don't actually pay back into the economy. What they
Yeah.
do is they use this money to pay themselves back, and nobody else. They hold on to that money. They accumulate wealth more because they already have everything they could possibly need and want. And then you just throw a bunch of money at them, and you expect that to trickle down. You expect them to like, oh yeah, you're gonna expand your business and hire a bunch of laborers. No, not necessarily. There's no reason to do that if you're already living well.
Yeah.
So this situation is $100 billion at the very least, more than the student loan debt. And again, we're talking about the people who treat your fucking boo boos, or the people that work for the people that treat your fucking boo boos, or your dog's boo boos, or your teeth boo boos. People that you actually need in your life, not little empire building rich sickos who are just going to hold on to their fucking money. Go ahead and go to the next link.
Yeah.
So this is from early on in the pandemic. There was this thing where the stock market just took an absolute fucking shit all over itself, and then started like rolling around in that shit, and everyone was like, "Oh fuck, the stock market is really bad right now."
Oh,
and this,
it's in the government's mouth.
yeah. Oh no, they're gonna get food poisoning from this. But U.S. is printing money to help save the economy from the COVID-19 crisis, but some wonder how far it can go. The Federal Reserve is creating dollars from scratch at an unprecedented rate, one of many tools to rescue the economy amid the coronavirus pandemic. Go ahead and scroll down a little bit. There's going to be like $1 trillion word in here somewhere. Oh yeah, there we go. In its frantic scramble to save the American economy, the central bank of the United States seems to have the ultimate superpower. It works like magic. With a few strokes on a computer, the Federal Reserve can create dollars out of nothing, virtually printing money and injecting it into the commercial banking system, much like an electronic deposit. By the end of the year, the Fed is projected to have purchased $3.5 trillion in government securities with these newly created dollars. So if we really want to talk about like, oh, you're empowering people who do nothing, or like I paid my loans off, why can't you pay your loans off? The federal government was like completely willing and enabled the Federal Reserve to just make $3.5 trillion out of nothing to try to save the stock market, which is still in the shit. Like still plummeting off and on, still a fucking nightmare because it's a speculative betting game.
Yeah.
Really all it fucking is.
It like every time somebody like is like, oh, like I don't know why, like people who know me are like, oh, you know, John seems like he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders. They're like, oh yeah,
John
like
seems like he has a really nice butthole.
So you must like you've got a stock portfolio, don't you? And I'm like, fuck no,
Absolutely
I don't.
fucking not.
Yeah,
No, fuck that shit.
I will never buy stocks.
Yeah.
We're like we're bending over backwards, fucking doing all this weird fucking money witchcraft to make weird rich people feel good about
even richer.
things.
Yeah, and like, oh, I'm ahead of the curve kind of feelings that they get to have because they had a lot of money early on, and so being ahead of the curve is actually just like, I was born rich and now I get to be richer based on nothing except for I decided to talk to a guy who knows where to put my money.
Yeah, and it's like advertising that like they don't seem to know if it actually has any effect on these speculative markets, the things that they do.
Well, and that's, you know, I Danko and I started our podcast around this time. And when we were tracking this initially, the meme that was going around was the federal government like sad, crying, like pained face, printing out a bunch of money, and on the other side of that was the like the stock, like you've seen like the stock market, like green bars and red bars for like when it's up or down, right?
Sure.
And it was just like a bunch of money would flow out, and then the thing would go green, and then like the money would go away, and it was just red again. And it's like that's what they were doing. They were pumping up all these markets and getting essentially they did not save the stock market. Oil went to a negative, and oil is like one of the biggest fucking things in the stock market. Oil went to such a negative that they were paying people to store oil on their land so that they could buy it back later when they knew that like the price of oil would bounce back up. That's how fucked the speculative market the stock market got over this, despite the fact that, as this article says, at least 3.5 trillion was pumped into the securities markets. Go ahead and go to the next link. Scroll up to the top so I can see that headline. So the stock market got 3.5 trillion. You as an individual, and this includes like healthcare provisions, and includes way more people than the business owners that got, the benefit of that 3.5 trillion in the stock market. Also the people who got the 400 billion in PPP loan forgiveness, for coronavirus stimulus packages, 2.4 trillion in funding. See what that means to the national debt. Who cares? 3.5 trillion was given to the stock market. These stimulus packages were the things that actually kept you alive.
Well, and the economy alive too.
Right, the real economy, the economy of you putting bread on your fucking table so that your family can eat. Only got $2.4 trillion on top of so this $2.4 trillion covers bread so your family can fucking eat. And this is the stimulus payments that you got that weren't near fucking enough for what people needed. The healthcare provisions that said, okay, we're going to make the vaccine free. The other healthcare provisions that said, hey, we're going to like not charge people quite as much for seeing a doctor about being sick with this global pandemic virus. And then, like other things like, public funds to make sure that your infrastructure doesn't like fall on top of your head during this time. And I can tell you, as somebody who worked in the public sphere through the coronavirus, they did not give us very much to make sure that your like infrastructure did not fall down on top of your fucking head.
Oh yeah, but like so, and not saying that school shootings aren't bad. They are bad.
So you're on the record as saying school shootings are bad. Is that your position?
Yes, but one of the things that the company that I work for has been doing in the area are these huge fucking security renovations for schools that basically make them kind of like a prison with all these like mag lock doors that like with a panic button will like lock the school down in like waves and turn it into a maze and shit like that. But bridges are going to continue to fall down and probably cause more injury and death with the shitty roads that we have to fucking drive on, and fucking all the infrastructure that's going bad, fucking wastewater treatment plants that are outdated and shit like that.
Wastewater plants that are not only just outdated, but running on extremely hackable hardware.
Oh yeah,
because they don't want to hire enough people to actually run the plant.
Oh yeah. Well, like I don't remember in the fucking encryption math for encrypting information or fucking creating a key to get into something, because I've repressed all that. But I'm pretty sure that you can't put 164-bit encryption or higher on a floppy disk, right?
No. It turns out that exceeds the floppy disk just in one character. But let's not get too mired in that other subject that maybe we can make a full episode out of. Go ahead and go to the next link. Get actionable investment ideas. So this is another problem And funny enough, somebody like CNBC or some organization rather like CNBC starts reporting on this as Biden is starting to indicate that maybe he's actually going to go through with some student debt forgiveness. Um, they start putting out articles like 100 million adults have healthcare debt and 12% of them owe $10,000 or more. Basically trying to say like, why is Biden so focused on student debt when there's also medical debt? Um, and of course, my response to this is, yeah, why not both? Exactly. You get it, right? Well, that's not the point that's being made here. The point that's being made here is, shouldn't we focus more on medical debt than student debt so that we can like put this into a area that Biden can't actually do? Because medical debt is privately owned rather than student debt, which is primarily federally owned.
Well, student loans, I think, are privately managed. A lot of them, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. So
Yeah,
privately
so
managed, but ultimately federally owned, which is why Biden can actually do something about it. And
yeah.
by do something about them, he could get rid of all of it. So, you know, throw that out there. He didn't get rid of all of it. He decided to do $10,000, $20,000 if you meet a narrower specification. But yeah, no, it's funny that the fucking news demons, and I'm willing to call them this, in this circumstance and a lot of other circumstances, but these fucking news demons decide, hey, why not bring up the 10,000 or more debt that people owe medically when that's all privately held debt that the federal government I mean, the federal government could send a bunch of fucking SWAT teams into every insurance company's offices and just start shooting people until they forgive all the debt. Uh, they do shit like that all the time with socialist organizations. Why not with the insurance companies? We don't know. Capitalism, I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, like they can regulate uh uh unions into not being able to effectively do anything. Why can't they just, regulate debtors into not being able to have debts on people?
I don't know, man. I'm just here for the podcast. No, your point is exactly the point that I'm also making. So these fucking news demons decide to go, why not talk about the $10,000 of medical debt? Isn't that more important than student debt? Student debt is something you decide to take on. Medical debt is something that, just arises out of your medical needs. So you don't really have a
So,
choice in that. Why isn't Biden talking about medical debt? Well, it's because he can't actually like
well, it's gross that either
Biden's
exists,
not a
but
break the rules guy, he's not going to do anything cool like that. Um and this is privately owned debt and he's not ever going to address it because he's against single payer healthcare because he's a demon himself. And B, like he plays more or less by the rules. He's very selective about what rules he places an emphasis on, of course, but the rules of the government say you can't fuck with privately held debt in this way. So um just an interesting article I found while I was looking through like the history of like the current debt crisis we have. um Go ahead and go to the next article, which talks a bit about why student debt. You just put the Benzo Rehab Dungeon at gmail.com in there. There you go. No, don't count me in for anything. Press that X in the top right. So this gentleman named Roger Freeman, who was a Reagan advisor, as the article says, also worked for Nixon. Revealed the right's motivation for coming decades of attacks on higher education. Go ahead and scroll down. Keep going.
keep going.
Yeah. So this highlighted portion of tweet is kind of what we're looking for there.
Okay.
All right. So this gentleman John Schwartz, who also wrote this article, so he's kind of like just quoting his own reporting on this through Twitter. So John Schwartz says, as Biden cancels some student debt, remember why the debt exists. A key Reagan advisor warned in 1970 that free college was producing the dangerously explosive dynamite of an educated proletariat, and that we have to be selective on who we allow to go through higher education. This quoted portion of like an earlier article from way back when in the Reagan era. Later in 1970, Roger Freeman, a key educational advisor to Nixon, then working for the re-election of California Governor Ronald Reagan, spelled out quite precisely what the conservative counterattack was aimed at preventing. Quote, we are in danger of producing an educated proletariat. That's dynamite. We have to be selective on who we allow to go through higher education. If not, we will have a large number of highly trained and unemployed people. End quotes. The two most menacing institutional sources of the danger described by Freeman were obviously those two great public university systems charging no tuition, the University of California and the City University of New York. Governor Reagan was able to wipe out the free institution at the University of California because he was the governor at that time.
Yep.
Go ahead and I think the next link. We don't need to talk about Freeman anymore. That piece of shit. So go ahead and zoom in on that top graph up there.
On top graph.
So you'll notice a steady decline, especially from the Reagan era. There's like this bend that you can see right above like 85, 86, right? Maybe mouse over it if you can read a graph.
You said 86?
Right above 85 and 86, yeah, so somewhere around so you see this bend in like the general curve, and then private institutions just like absolutely fucking take off. Other institutions get pretty fucking extreme. Scroll down from here. So according to the National Center for Education Statistics, for the 1970 to 71 academic year, the average in-state tuition and fees for 1 year at a public nonprofit university was $394. That is tuition for an entire fucking year. By the 2020 to 2021 academic year, that amount jumped to $10,560, an increase of 2,580%.
God damn.
So we are talking about a span of 51 to 52 years. And over that course of 51 to 52 years, the price of tuition has jumped by 2,580%. During the same period, tuition and fees at private institutions jumped by a similarly astronomical. Did I say that right? Astronomical.
Yeah, astronomical.
Astronomical. Astronomical. 2,107%.
Astronomical.
Astronomical. Look, man, I'm half retarded. From $1,706 in 1970 to $37,650 in 2020. Between 1970 and 2020, the dollar had an average inflation rate of 3.87% annually, resulting in a cumulative price increase of about 567% during the last 50 years. So you can see the direct correlation between the Reagan presidency and all of a sudden college becomes inaccessible to the average person, and people can't afford it anymore. And this is what leads to them needing to take out loans to pay for their college. And earlier on in this this phenomenon is people are able to still work and go through school after taking out a modest loan that they can eventually pay off pretty easily.
Oh yeah, like I got in a Facebook flame war with a baby boomer family member of mine, like an aunt or something. Because I'd commented on the fact that I literally only had time to work 15 hours a week while I was in college.
Yeah.
And that was not enough to cover my bills.
Right, because most student loans really just kind of cover the cost of tuition and like other expenses that you're taking on in academia, which is like books and shit, which costs like hundreds of dollars a piece.
Yeah, because if you read the fine print or talk to one of those financial aid administrators, they do expect your parents to contribute to your income. Yeah. They don't even factor that you have to work, because according to them, your parents should be paying your rent and your food and your clothes and shit like that still.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, and this family member commented on the fact that she only worked I think 10 to 15 hours a week the whole time she was in undergrad.
Must have been fucking nice.
Yeah. And like that side of my family
boomer.
isn't rich or anything, like they were blue collar, they came from blue collar people.
No, but they probably like had the ability to like own a home at some point and like
Oh yeah. I think my grandfather bought his first house when he was 22.
can't even fucking imagine.
Yeah. Not at all.
12 years later, and I'm like flirting with the idea of buying a home. And not even like buying it, entering into a mortgage agreement for a home.
Yeah, and my dream is to squat in a shack
on
somewhere
that property, right?
on that property, yeah.
Which of course you're welcome.
I'm eternally grateful.
No, I didn't mean, well, you're welcome as in like you should be thanking me. I mean, you have a place on the Benzo Rehab compound.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah, but you wanted to be shitty about it anyways.
I did want to be shitty about it. Yeah, that's true. I wanted to be shitty.
Obviously what we discuss is kind of like disheartening in a lot of ways. Again, the debt forgiveness is ultimately a good thing. It's just not enough. It doesn't address a lot of things that we need to go forward with to make education like accessible for people and to get more qualified people to treat your boo-boos and more qualified people to treat the boo-boos or like to help the people that treat your boo-boos. People to treat your teeth boo-boos, etc. There's no reason that we should have to enter into debt agreements in order to be people that this country relies on, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. And a lot of this, interestingly, comes from competition with the USSR back during the Cold War. I didn't prepare a link for this because this is just stuff that we should probably all know, and I'm not going to say anything misleading or wrong here. But basically, the USSR, for all of its faults, was doing a lot of education of people because it wanted to like succeed as a society.
Yeah.
And it turns out that like if you put people through like higher education and give them like the ability to like do better things for your society with that education, you get things like Sputnik was like the first real satellite project of any country.
Yeah.
The US beat Russia to the moon, and that was really only because Russia was like, yeah, I don't think it's really that important to land on the moon.
Yeah, it's just exorbitantly expensive.
Right, yeah.
To figure out that it's a lot of the same rock.
Right. Which it is important in its own way, but that was already conclusions that people were coming to. So I'm not going to shit on the American space program because I think it ultimately does better things for us than it does worse things for us. But at the same time, the only reason we beat Russia to the moon is because Russia was like, yeah, we're not like focused on that. We're doing other things. Also, Russia beat us to Mercury, um, which is weirdly cooler than Venus. I found out recently.
Really?
So they were actually able to land a craft on Mercury and take some pictures and then be like, "Hey, this is a really weird, fucked up environment, right?" And yeah. So Russia has actually done better things in space than we have at some points, and we've done better things in Russia at some points. But so we have the space race going on, the Cold War going on. Russia is just educating tons of fucking people who like qualify, based off of like academic ability, and they're more empowered to judge this academic ability because they're not like gatekeeping basic academic knowledge from people. Like
Yeah.
they're putting people through school, like what we would consider K through 12. They're just doing that for free. Nobody has to like be fucked up financially for that, which happens to low income families a lot. And then on top of that, the USSR is like, also, we'll send you to a big old fancy college, and we'll teach you there for free. And so America's response is, well, we need people to compete with that, but we can't just give that out for nothing, right? Like, and so that's where like the idea of a lot of these institutions, which were kind of just like free ride almost no matter what, became heavily financialized because it was like, well, we want to compete with the USSR, but if we do it in the same way as the USSR, which is giving it out for free, then we're like proving that their system works, and we can't do that. So we got to make them pay at least something to do that.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting. You see around this time, America moves away because of like weird political cultural nonsense, because they don't want to be like the USSR in this respect because they're retarded. And then Europe takes American educational systems or the models that were working to their countries that had shitty education systems and then just improved upon it.
Yeah.
And now Americans are illiterate.
Right. Yeah. Myself included.
Yeah. I don't understand how like I generally get the punctuation in the right places, but I don't understand why.
I mean, it's a feeling.
I was psychologically abused into being able to do grammar.
Yeah, I'm just guessing at this shit, man. I'm just trying my best. When I step out of lines, some shit lib tells me I'm stupid.
That's not
So yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to end the discussion on where student debt kind of comes from, why we even have it, why college got so expensive. The last thing I'd like to leave us with, and like I always do, I try to leave us with a little bit of mouthwash at the end. And this is one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen. So go ahead and go to that next link, John. This is Representative Jim Banks. I forget which state he's from, but this tweet from him says, "Student loan forgiveness undermines one of our military's greatest recruitment tools at a time of dangerously low enlistments."
Jesus Christ. What a
Right.
fucking ghoul.
So the first thing that needs to be pointed out is, man, you're really telling on yourself here. The second thing that needs to be pointed out is this isn't even like true enough that he needed to call himself out in this way.
Yeah.
So student loan forgiveness. This is a one-time thing, right?
Mhm.
It's only happening guaranteed this one time. $10,000, $20,000, depending on like what bracket you fall into. of poorness. Um,
So
these are people who already did not decide to join the military to get the GI Bill. They decided to take on debt instead of that, which I
yeah,
don't have any qualms with. Joining the military fucking sucked, and I wouldn't do it again probably. Um, so his first failing here is to recognize that if you have student loan debt, you probably didn't get the GI Bill. Uh, so like these are people who already weren't coerced into the military by the promise of free college eventually. The second thing that this fails to recognize is that this is a one-time thing only, as far as we know. It may happen again. I don't have a whole lot of hope for that, given the
no,
response. Um, this doesn't include people taking on debt as of like tomorrow, right?
yeah,
Because student loan debt becomes a payable debt once you graduate or once you leave college, essentially. Um,
oh yeah. So
so
yeah, the people that are currently in school now who've racked up $200,000 worth of debt probably
yeah,
aren't going to get their
exactly.
free half a semester of whatever.
And anybody who's entering that age to now either make the decision between join the military so I can get free college in 4 years after I witness like horrible things in another country, or take on loan debt now and graduate in 4 years so I can spend the rest of my life paying off this debt. Uh, that pressure is still there. This doesn't apply to them. It's not going to help them in any way whatsoever.
No.
So it's insane to me that not only does he admit the way the military like forces itself upon impoverished people is by giving this promise of a better future that maybe you have all of your limbs intact to like collect payment on. Um, he also just didn't even need to like fucking admit this in the first place because it's not true. We
Yeah.
all like, and I think honestly, like the condition for people taking on debt now is almost worse in a way, because people taking on debt now really understand this shit is probably never gonna fucking happen again under like any concurrent uh iteration of the US government, right? Like it's never going to
Well,
fucking happen again,
you know,
probably.
maybe like every 4 to 8 years, they'll knock off $10,000 of student debt as a reward for swallowing the pill of another Democratic administration.
Yeah, and that's
You
the
know?
best case scenario, but that's not even guaranteed. Like people know that like there's a real chance that we're going to see either Trump or DeSantis in the president's office come 2024, right? Like
Yeah.
we all kind of implicitly know that regardless of what our politics are, we're kind of betting on that. And we know that like this debt forgiveness is not something you can ever count on again. I mean,
No.
I didn't count on it, even though Biden's been saying that he's going to do something about it for like the last 2 years. Um, Thankfully, I only had like $2,500 worth of debt to pay off still, but I
Oh, good for
decided to
you.
do it anyways. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to hedge my bets on whether or not this old fucking asshole is going to come through on his promise. Um, so that's my mouthwash. Is Jim Banks is too
It's
stupid for his own good, but still giving away the game somehow.
yeah. How are these people in power? Money.
Yeah, I
It's
was gonna
just money.
say, yeah,
Only money.
yeah, comes from the right family, says the right things,
Yep.
rubbed elbows with the right people, has a lot of money.
Yeah. Part of the same strange hermetic fucking orders of the dollar.
Yeah, essentially, right.
Yeah.
With that being said, John, do you have anything you'd like to pitch before we close out? It's okay to say no.
Yeah, no.
No, okay. Wow,
No,
that came quick.
I don't. Legal wants me to like read a disclaimer after every episode, but
Oh,
what do those nerds know anyways?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'll give Danko's pitch for him since he's not here. Truncata Workshop. That's patreon.com/TRUNCATA. We do a bunch of literature reading, critiques of writing, that sort of thing. It's always been a good time. It's something I look forward to every Saturday. So if you would like to join that, Danko runs it. Also, Laura Nicholson, which is at LWRN Nicholson on Instagram. They also run some of the weeks for that. Very good stuff. A lot of good discussions, a lot of fun. So I encourage people to join that if you can. If you don't have the $5 to toss at it every month, usually if you talk to either Danko or myself, we will give you the links and the reading material in order for you to join us. So good workshop to join, fun time. What are you gonna say, Joan?
You don't have to go into crippling debt to
Yeah,
get
we
this,
don't we don't require anybody to take out a loan in
Mhm.
order for you to join our kind of advanced reading group. Honestly, talking about a lot of academic level concepts.
Yeah, just think of all the idiots committing suicide in their mid-30s, realizing that they'll never be free of debt. And
Yeah, I mean,
here
I
you
wouldn't
are.
call them idiots. That seems a little bit rude, but
No.
and it's not me. It's mostly Danko's project. I just participate as a guy, just a regular guy. That being said, my project, the Benzo Rehab Dungeon, is and always will be a free broadcast. If you would like to donate to this project, you can go to patreon.com/Benzo Rehab Dungeon. You can give as little or as much as you like. I do my best to make sure that anything I get through that Patreon essentially kind of goes back into the production of this broadcast. Things like the soundboard that I don't use quite enough, the various like news subscriptions that I have to maintain in order to get past paywalls so that I can read better articles, that sort of thing. So if you'd like to contribute to this project, again, please go to patreon.com/Benzo Rehab Dungeon. But this is and always will be a free broadcast, and nothing is required of you to watch this or engage with it. If you'd like to jump into the live chat sometime, or even message me on my Instagram account at Benzo Rehab Dungeon. With that out of the way, as always, we love you. Please take your medicine.
Take Danko's too. And save some, share some pills with your friends.
Nailed it. Nice work, buddy.
Fuck yes.